So we're glad to be here to join in this very important celebration. As Mike alluded to, it wasn't clear for quite some time this project actually would get done. And those of us in Arizona were very nervous about that because it's important to us. As we're painfully aware, we are junior right holders on the river. So every drop of water that's saved is very important to us. So we are delighted to be in this celebration, remembering that if drought is declared, we are certainly the losers. So keeping that water in the canal is extremely, extremely vital to us. More important than that, though, is the spirit of cooperation that this project demonstrates. Cooperation has been the new mantra of water policy, and we've had several of these now that are joint state, joint agency celebrations, and I'm looking forward to many, many more of those. Saving Water Together is a great acronym and slogan for today. Hopefully it'll be a slogan for ongoing policy and water togetherness. That's what makes things successful. So on behalf of CAP and on behalf of the Arizona water users that will benefit from those drops that are saved, congratulations, and we're delighted to be here.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our board president, James Hanks, president of the IID, representing Division 3. He is a retired school superintendent, having worked in the education field for at least 38 years. He served as superintendent of Calipatria Unified for 20 years. Prior to that, principals of Island and Calipatria. Yep. Where have all the years gone? I remember chasing him down the basketball court. Thank you. On behalf of the Imperial Irrigation District Board of Directors, I want to say how pleased I am to welcome all of you here today. We've obviously come a long way since the All-American Canal Lining project began construction on July 5th, 2007. The work that has been done to this 23-mile stretch of the canal has been more or less continuous. I know from the times I've driven by the project site on my way to Unified. Technical studies have shown that this particular segment of the canal is where the greatest quantity of seepage water could be recovered, which is why it was chosen for concrete lining. But you don't have to be an engineer to know that it's also the toughest stretch of the desert in the entire 82-mile-long waterway. This was, after all, a part of the original All-American Canal that surveyors would plot out one day and return later, usually after an intermittent desert wind had blown through the area, only to find that their markers had been completely covered by the sand. Well, there are a few of the old-timers who are around anymore to provide the proper context. It is instructive to remember that one of the primary reasons for the building of the All-American Canal and Imperial Dam was to control for periodic flooding of the Colorado River. It's ironic but true that the problem in those days was too much water, and the threat of flood was never far from the minds of the Imperial Valley earliest settlers. What a difference the new millennium makes. Congratulations to all the project partners on this historic occasion, and kudos to the IID Water Department, to the All-American Canal Lining Project Manager, Todd Shields, whose grandfather, incidentally, worked as a Bureau Reclamation engineer on the first All-American Canal project some 80 years ago now. Todd, would you stand up for them? And when we talk about a mean stretch of desert, many of us had grandfathers that worked on the original canal with mules and Fresno, and to see the equipment operate day and night. Every time I would come by, I would wonder what my grandfather would say if he saw all that equipment out there after enduring the years and years of hardships behind the mule. They say there's nothing new under the sun, and for the most part, they are right. But there is obviously a new paradigm at work on the Colorado River, and this project is is a shining example of the good that can be done when you take something old and make it new again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now I would like to introduce the Vice Chair of the San Diego County Water Authority Board, Mark Watton. Mark has a long history in water, being one of our longest tenured board members, and actually served as chair of the board in 1995 when we first began discussions with IID. Mark?
Thank you, Maureen. It's quite a turnout to celebrate our completion of this 23-mile segment. I note that the Water Authority has done pretty well getting the crowd control here. I'm standing in for our chair today, Bud Lewis. Sorry to say that he had a family emergency that prevented him from being here today. Otherwise, I know he would really want to be here. The project we are dedicating today is something we can all be proud of. It is not just an engineering feat of such an enormous project, but it also is the conservation that will result in this completion, and we're going to talk about that a lot. The conserved water that was previously lost to seepage makes this project an example of a wise investment in long-term water supplies. It will help California reduce its overdependence on Colorado River water for decades to come. That can't be underestimated. This project could not come in a more important time. Supply challenges have increased. You read about this every day, the urgency for saving water around the state, including San Diego County. We're not exempt from that. Last year, the Water Authority implemented an aggressive campaign that urges residents and businesses to reduce their water by an additional 20 gallons per person per day. You probably see some of the media attention for that. However, with the restrictions on the Bay Delta that we are experiencing, escalating statewide shortages, supply shortages that have now made the Water Authority's voluntary call for conservation will turn into most likely a mandatory use restriction. This project will help mitigate our current shortage, help ensure long-term regional reliability, and help relieve stress on other parts of the California water infrastructure. And again, that can't be underestimated. As Marie mentioned, I was first seated on the Water Authority board. She mentioned I was here a long time, but it's actually from 1985, and I think Ralph, your brother, was on the board back in those times. So that's how long we've been talking about various water-saving opportunities between our two communities. So all the various agreements, we can look back, the IID, some of the other San Diego issues, the lining that we're here today. Leading up to this celebration took a lot of time, cooperation, and compromise by all the parties who were involved. And I was involved in some of those discussions with IID, and from those first meetings, I knew that there were those opportunities for the two agencies to work together. And I just have to remember back with Lloyd Allen and Don Cox, who are not with us today, who were very instrumental. And I know Don Cox and I had discussions in Sacramento back in the 80s about some of these things. So, Mike, like you mentioned, I learned an awful lot from those gentlemen, and I do carry them with me. So with those opportunities that we have come together on, I'd like to recognize and thank the IID board and their staff that made today a reality. So thank you. And to conclude, this is an important day for all of us. I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in the quantification settlement agreement. There's so many of you to list. I have the list of names, but it would take too long to read them. But I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in the success and contributed to the success of this lining of the All-American Canal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to introduce, straight from Washington, D.C., Mr. Carl Werkus, who has had a stellar 25-year career with Bureau of Reclamation. He currently oversees the operations in the Bureau of Reclamation's 5 regions, the Native American and International Affairs Office and Technical Resources. Most recently, he was Deputy Regional Director for Pacific Northwest Region and worked on complex negotiations on the Endangered Species Act issues.